Hey everybody, the Bedbug Guy is here to do another video for you guys. Something I wanted to talk about today, and that is to answer the question that Joe Rogan has and many others, which is how did the Egyptians transport heavy granite blocks up the Nile from 500 miles away in Aswan to the Giza Plateau, let alone anywhere else in the country? Before we go on, it's a little bit of wind here on the back porch today, so we have the soothing wind chimes of my neighbor in the background. Sorry about that. I'll see if I can reduce that in editing, but hopefully it's a little bit of mood music. So anyway, transporting heavy granite up the Nile for the ancient Egyptians. If you listen to a lot of people, this is a big mystery. How did they do this? These things weigh 70 tons. How were they able to float it down the river? Were they using rafts? A lot of them will point to Khufu's boat, which was found buried next to the Great Pyramid, and that boat is 4,500 years ago. And they will point to that and say, look at that, they're not transporting granite blocks on something like that. And to their credit, that's true. That's the king's yacht. It isn't a cargo vessel. So if you've studied ancient Egypt, really studied at all, you'll find out that this really isn't a mystery. So let's go to this. They did have wooden boats. Wood was not a resource that they had in Egypt, at least not wood that you could build with, and a lot of it had to be imported from Lebanon. They imported a lot of cedar for their woodworking projects. Not a whole lot of usable trees in Egypt. So wood being precious, certain boats were made of wood if they could afford it. Those would be the long-lasting boats or the really nice boats. But as it turns out, the vast majority of boats used in ancient Egypt were actually made of reeds. Now, reeds are a plentiful resource along the Nile. They grow very quickly, easy to cut down, and what they do is basically wrap them into bundles and construct whatever boat that they need, from fishing boats all the way up to large stuff. And you can tell when you look at a painting if it's a reed boat because the ends come up and point in like this. That's when you wrap the reeds, they tend to bend up. And I'll show you some examples of that in a little bit. So with reed boats, you're not limited to how large of a boat you can make. Okay? So, and it turns out they're excellent for making boats, and you can hold large amounts of weight on reed boats. So I'm going to show you a picture, and it's from Hatshepsut's temple at Deir el-Bahari. When you see it, it's actually a drawing copy of it, because when they went through to copy all the wall art, it was fading rapidly, and a lot of this is copied by hand. So you can go into Hatshepsut's temple and the painting is almost completely gone, but this is how it's been preserved, and this is what it is. And it's actually a scene of transporting one of Hatshepsut's obelisk. And if you look at it, it is a massive barge. And if you look at the end that's shown, it curves up. This is a reed barge. Now, this is how they routinely did it. So maybe you may say, well, is it even possible to make reed barges that would transport that much weight? I'm going to show you some pictures from Uros in Lake Titicaca. And Uros is man-made islands, and they're made completely of reeds. And also you can see the very large boats that they've made out of reeds. And notice how they curve at the ends. That's just how they're wrapped, okay? So this still even goes on today. It's a wonderful material for making boats. Now, they don't last forever, of course. Not going to last as long as a wooden boat. But as far as, you're wanting to transport heavy granite, no problem. If it wears out, you can build another one pretty quickly. And especially in this case, with Hatshepsut's temple, they're transporting obelisks, which put any granite blocks at the Great Pyramid to shame. They're extremely large and heavy. So I just wanted to really quickly just kind of go into detail, show you a couple things, and answer that question. If somebody could let Joe Rogan know this is how they did it, it is documented. Now, how they got it on the boat and off the boat is another question that I do not know the answer to. They didn't exactly write that part down, but they definitely wrote the part down of floating the stones down the Nile, or up the Nile. Also, another fun fact, I alluded to this in the last video, and I'll tell you again. The Nile current flows from south to north. Aswan is in the south, and everywhere they transport it to is in the north. You don't need any sails to travel from south to north in the Nile. And during inundation, the current was even stronger. So literally, you get the obelisk or heavy granite on these barges, and if you'll notice on that copy, they just have oars to steer it. That's all you have to do is steer it up the river and then pull in. It doesn't need sails. It doesn't need oars. Nothing. It moves on its own. Interestingly enough, the prevailing winds on the Nile go from north to south. So if you see a tomb painting where the sails are up, that means they're traveling south. No sails means they're traveling north. Anyway, I appreciate everybody that's been subscribed to me. I'd appreciate some more subscribers. Any questions, comments, concerns, or hate, please leave them in the comments. I answer everybody no matter what. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Thank you very much.